Hi, today we are going to see Azure subscriptions. We are going to see the complete hierarchical order related to subscriptions in today's class. We'll start with the organizations, organization inside a set of organizations, Azure AD tenant, Azure account, then management group, then get into subscription. Then we already know about resource group and resources. So if you take, you can have an organization which means it is composed of n number of organization. Okay, so organization is a set of entities which do various heterogeneous business, in which an organization can do only a particular business. Say for example, organizations is a business empire doing multiple business, something like financial related consulting, iron ore, information technology, accounting, and then customer support, something like that, in which a particular organization, say for example, IT enabled services or infrastructure related services or software development, that is an example of an organization. Now let's start with one important thing. If you are new to my series of videos, please have a look at the Azure concepts. I will be providing the link in the description, and that will be helpful for you to speed up your learning process. Now let's start with what is Azure AD tenant and its use. An Azure AD tenant represents a single organization in the cloud and is used to manage identities for the users, groups, and applications. What I mean by single organization is, as I mentioned earlier, IT enabled services or infrastructure service provider or a software development company, that is nothing but a single organization. All Azure subscriptions and services within an organization are associated with a single Azure AD tenant, which acts as a central identity provider for organization. Well, this Azure AD tenant provide identity and access management, otherwise called as IAM, capabilities to applications and resources used by your organization. The purpose of Azure AD is to provide a centralized identity management solution for an organization applications, resources, and services. You can use single set of credential to access multiple applications, avoids multiple time typing the user ID and and the password. That is, in multi-factor authentication, and using which a user is granted access to a website or application only after successfully presenting two or more pieces of evidence to an authentication mechanism. Say, for example, after entering user ID and password, you will be asked to perform a simple calculation, or you will get an SMS in your mobile device that need to be entered, or you will be asked some secret question and for which you have to answer. If all things are all correct, your multi-factor authentication is complete and you are allowed to access a website or an application. Next come device registration. Azure AD tenant is also useful for device registration purposes. This registration is a process that allows a user to flag his computer or mobile device which is successfully logging it into company's risk-based network, and to store the device fingerprint while accessing the network. And the last one is related to conditional access. Here, in the conditional access, it's a kind of process in which a user is required to be authenticated before accessing a secured resource. If a user wants to access a resource, then they must complete an action. For example, a payroll manager wants to access a payroll application and is required to do multi-factor authentication to access it. So conditional access is nothing but they are required to complete authentication process including multi-factor authentication in order to gain access to an application. So these are some of the key points related to Azure AD Tenant. In short, Azure AD Tenant is an entity that will provide identity access management for your set of resources or the application whatever you have in the landscape. Now let's see what is an Azure account. Azure account follows Azure AD tenant. So Azure account is a global unique entity that gets access you to Azure services and your Azure subscriptions. With an Azure account, you can access wide range of services including virtual machine, storage, database, analytics, and many more. You can use Azure account to deploy, manage, and scale applications in the cloud. It is also used for to store access related data. You can sign up directly through an azure.com with the help of Microsoft representative or through a partner. The last one, an organization can have as many number of accounts equal to the number of employees of the organization. So this is about Azure account. Next come, what is Azure Management Group? Azure Management Group is a single unified way of managing the resources associated with an organization using policies. This makes it easier for administrators to manage, monitor, and report on the usage of Azure resources and to maintain compliance with industry regulations and standards. Next come with respect to subscription, Azure Management Group can have multiple number of subscription under a single management group. It makes it easier to control large enterprise having thousands of resources and a large set of employees and customers. Azure Management Group do not have a specific limit on the number of subscriptions that can be associated with them. Next come uniform policy. It allows administrator to apply and enforce policies as well as apply access control to multiple subscriptions and resources. Management groups are also useful for organizations with multiple department, projects, or geographic location as they provide a centralized and a consistent way to manage Azure resources. A subscription can belong to only one management group. As mentioned earlier, Azure Management Group do not have a specific limit on the number of subscriptions that can be associated with them. Next come on nesting. Management groups can only be 6 levels deep. Azure Management Group have a hierarchical structure with a maximum of 6 levels of depth is allowed. This means that you can have a management group at the top level with other management groups nested within it and so on until you reach the sixth level. That is, I wish to correct one important thing. You cannot nest the management group. You can have management groups one after another. That is, you have a management group A and then B, and inside B you cannot have A once again. Next come number of groups. You are allowed 10,000 management groups in a single tenant, and there is a single top level root management group that cannot be deleted. With respect to new subscriptions are all automatically placed under the root, and the number of subscription can belong to one management group only. And on the assignation side, user access assigned to a management group is applied to all the resources which comes under the management group. So these are the key pointers that you have to note it down under Azure Management Group. Now, what is Azure subscription? To use Azure cloud-based services, you must first purchase a subscription or you need to be included as part of the subscription. If you are part of a larger organization, your organization might already have a subscription with Microsoft Azure. So when you are using a company email ID Usually it will be part of the subscription, or you need to ask your administrator to add you as part of the subscription. So it enables customer to create, manage Azure services such as virtual machines, databases, and storage accounts. It is based around the business needs and the usage patterns of the company. It acts as a single billing unit for Azure resources, with a subscription billed for services used in the Azure. A subscription is an agreement between the organization and Microsoft to use the resources for which charges are either paid on per license basis or cloud based or resource consumption basis. You can watch another video with related to consumption based model which is already published in the YouTube. Next, some of the key points that you need to note. Number one, an Azure can have many number of tenants. That is, your organization can be divided into multiple subunits, something like APAC region, US region, or EMEA region. Each tenant can have multiple number of subscription. Say, for example, US region can have a subscription with a specific business. For example, it can be a business related to financial services, another business related to testing services, something like that. Third important one, each tenant have many accounts within it to manage the resources. So within account, you can have multiple number of subscription. Next one, Azure AD tenant determines which account can use with which subscription. And the last one, Azure resources must be tied to a subscription for billing purpose. So if you look in this diagram, we have an Azure Active Directory that can connect to a subscription, which in turn connect to a resource group, and the resource group will have the resources associated with it. So this is a very simple diagram to note down the association between Azure subscription, Azure AD, and then resource group along with the resources. Now let's see what are the different types of subscriptions. The first one is related to the free subscription. The free account is a subscription that gives you unrestricted access to Azure resources as well as $200 credit toward paid products. It is designed for the developer and a small business to test and evaluate Azure services. Free account is available for a user for the first 30 days to consume the $200 credit. However, you can hold free account for a year. Next come pay as you go subscription. Here in pay as you go Azure accounts, it can be converted from a free Azure accounts. That is, you can convert a free account into pay as you go account anytime. There is no need to recreate services once again during the transition. This pay as you go is a very standard subscription that charges the resources on pay per use basis, and the customers will be charged mostly on monthly basis. This account requires the use of credit or debit card, and it is billed on mostly on monthly basis. Next come MSDN based subscription. It is available for developer who already has MSDN licenses. This subscription is designed for the developers and provides set of benefits including free access to Azure services for development and testing purposes. Next come enterprise agreement related subscription. This subscription is for larger organization and provides centralized purchasing, billing, and management of Azure services as well using a discounted pricing. And EA is a contract between the company and the Microsoft. It also supports for use of on-premises MS licenses which are already purchased and transferable to cloud service provider. Next come CSP subscription or cloud service provider subscription. This subscription allows customer to purchase Azure services through a network of certified partners who provide additional services such as technical support and consulting. and can be useful for those organizations who are doing proof of concept, for which they can approach the client partner for quick remedy to any issues that are being faced during proof of concept development. The last one is related to Azure Stack subscription. This subscription provide a hybrid cloud solution that allows customers to run Azure services on premises and extend it to the cloud. Please note down one important thing: all Azure services are not available as part of on premises. The licenses are all first available at on premises usage, and you can transfer the licenses to the cloud at a later stage. So these are the some of the important point related to types of subscription. Next come, we have seen all about different entities. We are going to sum up together in a single picture. A picture is worth 2000 words. If you look here, we have organizations. An organization have multiple entities, organization 1 and 2. It may be an organization specific to, say for example, organizations is an IT service provider. They have organization entity who look for US region and Europe region. In Europe region, they can have Azure AD tenant that it takes care of the tenancy related to Europe, and it will have two different Azure account 1 and 2, and the Azure account 2 that will take care of the financial business related IT development or servicing, within which we can have management group 1, management group 2. Management group 2 takes care of our cloud enabled services within financial services, within which you have subscription 1 and subscription 2. The subscription 1 will take care of cloud migration related activity, within which we have couple of Azure groups, resource groups, and every resource group will have resources attached to it. And we have seen this resource and the resource group combination in our earlier video, and so these forms it into subscription. A subscription is tied up with the management group, and this one is tied up with an Azure account. An Azure account tied up with the Azure AD tenant. In turn, it goes for organization. In turn, it will go for organizations. And this is how the hierarchical order of subscription. Now, what are the different subscription strategies which are available? We are in the previous slide. We are talking about the subscriptions. I mentioned you an example of the cloud migration related activity that can be grouped under a subscription. Like that, there are other way in which you can do a subscription strategies. One is based upon the workload. You can have a subscription that will control the resource group and the resources which are under production environment or in non-production environment. And you can have a subscription purely based upon application category. You can group the application category either as a business need or for data need, and then you can have two different subscription to control the resource group and the resources under that. Next come functional based grouping. Example, finance, sales, or IT. Next come based upon business unit. Unit number 1, unit number 2. And the last one is it can be based upon geographic region like Europe, APAC, or North America. This is how you can plan your strategies. With that, I end up today's discussion. If you like this video, please go ahead and subscribe. And also note down that to test your knowledge, there is another video available, that is question, answer and explanation session, Azure video for Azure fundamentals QA session, and that talks about questions, answers and explanation, that is part of video serial number 38. The link is available in the description. Please visit. And as I mentioned earlier, thank you, and I hope this video is helpful to you. And this is not the end of the session. We are going to continue in the new section sometime tomorrow. Till then, stay safe and bye now.